Friend, I thank you very much in every way, but I'm always a little bit afraid if you clap before you know what's expecting you. So I hope I can make it up to the expectations and that really these days will be something for you when you think back, that you think it was a good time. I would like to say first something about, you forgive me that I walk a little around, for two reasons. One is my upbringing, or let's say my father, who was Argentinian, so I'm not a typical German, being very like this. And the second is, if you walk a little around, Abdul Baha said, then people have to watch, they can't go to sleep. So, a little introduction. Friends, it is interesting, when you travel, and we traveled a lot coming here, everywhere, it seems they use one word these days very much, that is happy. They say happy Christmas when you enter the plane. They say when you leave the plane, everything is happy. Happy New Year, everyone seems happy. But you get the feeling that this happiness is somewhat not lasting, because after these days, I guess in January at least, in Europe, on the 2nd January, it is over. And then come the serious days again, no happiness. So I wondered, we Baha'is, we are not so much happy, obviously, because our happiness is very moderate. You meet the Baha'is, they don't say happy anything. Yeah? So, what is with us? It is really, friends, look, when Abdul Baha was in Paris, it was 11, when he said this, he addressed the friends about this subject of happiness. Yeah? Perhaps you know the talk. And he said that man is a spiritual being, and only if he is in the spirit he is happy. This is the difference. Let me explain it to you with the summer school here. Look, you have such a reason to be happy. Imagine, yesterday we heard what Shoghi Effendi said about summer schools. He says, first, it is devotion, then it is study, and third, it is recreation. Now, think, it is even more pleasant to go to a school of the Baha'is than to go to a conference, in a sense. Because if you go to a Baha'i conference, you unite in the will for action. Here, unite in the will for nothing, just to relax. Yeah? Isn't this great? This is great. No, because Shoghi Effendi said one of the reasons for a summer school is that we come close together. This togetherness is important for us. This is what we lack in this world. This is, on the other hand, so beautiful. I come here, most of you haven't seen me. Yeah? We are like any place. Wherever we go, it is the same. We are at home. Yeah? This is a reason to be happy, that we can be together here. Yeah? And it's also great. Think that this study and recreation is considered as devotion. This is the service we can give to Abdul Baha. that we are united, that we are in harmony. This is a reason of happiness. And another, which is particular for you, which is that it is now 100 years that the first believer, the official believer, Margaret Stevenson, became a Baha'i, or was a Baha'i here in the country. Now think how she must look down on the many Baha'is here. How happy she must be. 100 years. It's not much. And yet there are so many. That's a reason to be happy and grateful. Friends, the subject that was chosen for the main subject for this being together the 4 days was that it should be building a new order. Yeah? Now, when you think of it, perhaps it was not so very correct. Building a new order. Because Baula himself says that all men were created to carry forward a... Good, you learned your lesson. Yes. Yes. That is N1. There is no new in this sense that it comes out. It is the old civilization that we carry forward because it's ever advancing. So it would have been better if we had chosen to be created to carry forward the civilization. Yeah? Don't think that we are in this sense as a religion, because if we were created for this, of course God created us. So whatever we do comes from God. It has the purpose to be returned to God. So a civilization can only be a civilization if it is a divine civilization. This is the first lesson that we have to learn. Is there a civilization of any philosopher, of a politician, of an emperor? No. It is only the messengers from God, the representatives of God, that create a civilization. But it is going forward, ever advancing, progressive. Therefore, we are now, in a sense, when saying building the new civilization, we are just continuing. You know, Shoghi Effendi, the head of the faith, before the Universal House of Justice, he said, think of us like standing on the shoulders of all those before us. Yeah? Now, if they go away, we fall. Always remember that. Without the earlier civilizations, in this sense, the Christians, or whatever it is, the Muslim, we fall. We cannot be. So never forget that we, in our consideration, we have always to go back to them and then go forward. Yeah? But it is ever progressing. And this is the purpose of our life, that we help that it moves forward. Yeah? So this subject of building the new civilization means that we are just a bit pushing it a bit further. Now, the interesting is, the new thing is, that these civilizations in the past, they had to be renewed always at a certain point. Because, you know, we use things and then they become old and we need something new. Yeah. So, also in civilization. Civilization developed to a certain point and then it became somewhat used or felt that it was not progressing anymore. It stagnated. Yeah. this in future will never happen again. Never will we have this civilization go down. Because what did Baha'u'llah tell us? He said, my light is not followed by darkness. Imagine that. We are building now something in a sense which is totally new. Let me give you an example. You know, in Matthew's, in Jesus is supposed to have said, in my Father's house there are many dwellings. I guess you know this word. So, in my Father's house there are many dwellings. That is, let's say, like an apartment house. And in an apartment house, people live there, and, you know, they come and go. At least in Finland, they would hardly know who the neighbor is. In Finland, we live honestly in a place where they respond if you approach them. But otherwise, Finns are very reluctant. So they often don't speak with each other. They live next to you. In my Father's house, there are many dwellings. But they have no interconnection. This was the civilization up to now. What does Baha'u'llah say? You find this in gleanings of his writings. He says, the will of the Almighty has decreed that out of a house devoid of all that divines and doctors, sages and scholars commonly possess, his cause should go forward and be made manifest. Now, what does this mean? The new civilization is like a big, big room. Wonderful room. But it's empty. We fill this room. But there are no, you can put here a wall, you can put there a wall, but it is not really a high wall. It's just that you have some privacy. Of course we will have some privacy. Of course we need something like, let's say, nations in future. Of course it is, the Finns are feeling fine, they are Finns, 5 million. Why? In the whole world they speak alone one language. No one knows this language, but they are proud. And it's good. Okay, Finns like their sauna, they're nice. But there are other nice people too. So they speak their language. So it's a beauty that we have. And this will be preserved. Of course, you realize we need the language, we need an auxiliary language. All this is fine. But this is like, look, like these flowers here. Why are they so beautiful? Because they have different colors. By the way, I don't know whether you have noticed that these are the colors of Finland, but perhaps it was intended. But it is beautiful. Look at this. Because it's so different in shade, in color, in odor. Everything is different. This makes up a civilization of the future. But still, it is empty, the room. We have to fill the room. Now, how do we fill it? We cannot fill it with this, as Baha'u'llah says, what the divines have said. Divines is a euphemistic, a good word for priests. Because priests in the past were often the ones who thought they tell us what a civilization has to be. This is no more. In the Baha'i faith, we have no priests. You remember what Baha'u'llah said to Napoleon III when he did not accept his message, which he sent, and threw it behind his back? then he says the power will be seized from kings and rulers and ecclesiastics. Ecclesiastics is another word for priests. Yeah? Now, and to whom will the power be given? To Paula's followers, the ones who sit here, the ones who have seen that there is something behind the Baha'i faith, that there is something you can contribute in filling this room, because it will take long. Yeah? But not with that what priests in the past have said. This is not. You have to make it up. You have to understand what the teachings are. This is the purpose of the summer school. To study, to realize what the Word of God is in all religions, certainly. There is no difference in a sense, if you think of it, when Jesus says, in my Father's house there are many dwellings. Of course, there are many dwellings, but they were not interconnected. Now it is therefore one room, and we fill it. We fill it gradually. Yeah? So this is our task, to be together in this room and to fill it with the knowledge. Because there are three things in life, Abdul Baha said, when he was in the States. He said, the attainment of any object, not Baha'i, any object, depends on knowledge, volition, and action. Without these three conditions forthcoming, there is no achievement and execution, he says. Knowledge, volition, action. Now, here we are especially concerned with knowledge, because study in a summer school, and that's most probably why Shoghi Effendi said a school, is to find out about this, what we read, what we hear, whether this is what we would accept. So the purpose is really during these days that you try to imbibe, to immerse yourself in the ocean of his words, of Paula's words, and somewhat to find, is this the thing I can put into the room, into this huge room? Not any other word, not even of a philosopher, not of anyone else but Paula, Abdul Baha, the Baha'i faith, and the old religions. Because they were the basis for us today. So you realize that these schools are still, they are good for our, for our leisure time, but the purpose is really that we create a harmony that is carrying us to find that what we call truth, that what we wish to, how we wish to fill this room. Now, there is another aspect. It is really the subject of civilization. Now, a civilization is not necessarily only spiritual. It is founded by the messengers of God. We go to Israel, for example. Be a Jew, you will realize how strong the idea of their civilization is. You have the Christian civilization, it's all over the world. You have the Muslim civilization. And we will build the Baha'i civilization. But it is going back to a messenger from God who revealed to us how we are guided in building an ever-advancing civilization, which changes in design, as I explained, but it is a civilization, that was all that. A house is a house, whether it has many dwellings or one room. A house is a house, the house of God into which we invite mankind. It is a new that is true. Now, this is the main subject. I would like to dwell a few words on this idea of knowledge. Yeah? When Paula says that this one big room, which is his house, is empty in this sense, that is devoid of all that the sages, that is the wise men, and the scholars, that is those who have worldly knowledge, it does not mean that we forget it, but we have to bring it into congruence, into harmony with what we learn in school, in other school, for our profession. So we have to learn to bring it into this, what makes our surroundings. I come to this later, how we do it and in what way we do it. But knowledge does not mean that we now start just only having the ideas of the Baha'i faith. The Baha'i faith is part of the knowledge earlier civilizations had achieved. So never forget that. We stand on their shoulders. Yeah? Now, to the way how I suggested to the National Assembly and to the committee, how I suggested to, during these plenary sessions in the morning, to convey to you this, how we fill the new house. I based it on Abdul Baha, who, when in Europe, for example in Stuttgart, that is in Germany, also in Manchester, and certainly in North America, what he kept repeating. He said, I say it in a way which you could easily recognize, there are others similar, but he says, out of the mess of humankind, God has chosen the friends. And he has favored them with his guidance and boundless grace. Now, his purpose is this, that we, each one of us, shall strive, I'll explain, strive with our whole hearts to do three things. To offer ourselves up, guide others to his path, and train the souls of man. These are, how should I say, the subjects of the first three sections of morning plenary sessions. To offer ourselves up. This is, I'll try to explain it, to live the life. The second, guide others to his, God's path. It's obvious, this is what we are supposed to do, to speak about the Baha'i faith. To show to others. Because if you have something precious you like, why wouldn't you want to share it with others? And the third, that to train the souls of man. Friends, it is interesting that in the faith we have a certain terminology. You could easily say to educate the souls of man. Abdul Baha says so. When Abdul Baha speaks of what you should do, is to educate the souls of man. But when it comes to institutions, he says suddenly to train the souls of man. So I'll try to explain to you what the difference is But that's in days to come. You have something to think about and look forward to. So I just throw a bone to you, not more. But there is, even in the words that are used in the faith, and therefore I try to quote as much as my brain can still hold. I try to quote, because every word has a significance. Now, let's look at this, what I just said. Out of the mess of all of humankind, the messes of humankind. Have you ever thought about that? Why you became a Baha'i? It's, in a family, for example, in my mother's family, we had a very staunch Protestant. He was a very good believer in Jesus. But she had another sister who was equally strong as a Catholic. And of course, you can imagine, my mother was not such a poor Baha'i. So, 3 different, but why only my mother a Baha'i? And then God chooses. Aren't you proud that you can say, I chose God? No, you shouldn't, because he chose you. Yeah? It is the case. Look, friends, I realize what you might object, because Paula says, love me. See, first it says, obviously, love me. You see, we have just to be open to the new. As we should be open to this, what we hear here. We should be open. And then we can become critical and say, okay, it's his opinion. But you cannot doubt if I quote. So if I say, out of the mess of humankind, God has chosen the friends. It means that the Baha'is were chosen by God. Now, why would God choose us? Why did he choose my mother and not my aunt or aunts? Why? When Abdul Baha was in Manchester, this is quite an interesting talk. He said that if thou, he was addressing the people present, if thou wert without ability and capacity, thou wouldst never have entered the kingdom of Apa. That is, each one of you sitting here has something, some potential, some ability, a capacity only you can contribute. Yeah? The purpose of such a school, again, is that you look into yourself. Where is my capacity for that? Where do I have a potential? You have all the time for recreation in the afternoon, evening. Yeah? You relax, but think about, where am I good? This is the purpose. This is why Shoghi Effendi said we have to bring both together, knowledge and then the time to think about it. Yeah? Recreation. So you think about it, where is my strength? Yeah? In this filling a room, where would I be good? Perhaps in putting up some flowers? Perhaps in setting, one of these walls in between? Or something like this. But you were chosen by God to find out what your potential is. And it is never ending. Because you were chosen by God, to create, to carry forward this civilization, ever advancing. Now, find out in yourself where you are good. In our profession, we usually know. But if it comes to the faith, it's more difficult. And I admit it, it's more difficult. But this is the challenge. Yeah? So God has chosen the friends. Now, the purpose is that we, each one of us, notice, Abdu'l-Baha says, we first. And then he says, each one of us. That is, together, like we do in the summer school. We do it together. Yeah? You talk to your neighbor, you talk at a meal, wherever you are, you talk, you exchange, and then you listen, you think. This is the way how we develop in being a Baha'i. Learning in school. Now, we, all of us, should strive. In the Baha'i faith, one thing is for sure. You will never make it in this world in a perfect way. This is impossible. Baha'u'llah makes it very clear, very sure. Everything is to try. You know, you forgive me, at times I like to give little episodes in between, but, you know, when I guess all of you know the Amatul Baha Ruye Khanum, the wife of the late head of the Baha'i faith, Shoghi Effendi. Now, when her end came closer, she told the Universal House of Justice, please, on my gravestone, only one thing. Only 2 words. She tried. Nothing else. Of course, when you go to Haifa, you realize that the house didn't obey. So it happened that she had realized what it means, what a Baha'i life is. To try. Yeah? And as Abdu'l-Baha says, with our heart, with our all what we have. Yeah? So this is what Baha'u'llah says in one of his prayers, in prayers and meditations. He said, just to strive, and this will be acceptable in the eyes of God. Yeah? Because God can only know how much you used your potential. You know this famous example Baha'u'llah gives us? Some have the potential of a palm, a little handful. Others of, a cup. And again, others of a gallon. But if you fill the palm fully, it's much better than the lot in a gallon, which is only a quarter. It's obvious. So God knows, but we try. We try. And this is acceptable. So, out of the mass of humankind, God has chosen the friends. And his purpose is this, that we, each one of us, should strive with our whole hearts. Now, it comes. 3 things. How we change the world. How we build our new civilization. How we fill this huge room. 3 things. To offer ourselves up, guide others to his path, and train the souls of man. 3 mornings where I'll try to explain to you what this means. Let's take the first. To offer ourselves up. I think most of us Baha'is, when we hear these words, to offer ourselves up, we come to think of our believers in Iran, because they are the example of offering up their lives. They were and they are still. Again, these days, as you know, we had another martyr, because we call this martyrdom. We have so many believers who are imprisoned. Yeah. Our children, even in primary school, they suffer already, friends. Look, if you are a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, you have in front of the whole class, you have to come up and say, I'm a Baha'i, meaning I'm of the devil. Imagine, what is this for this pure little heart and mind? But they are proud. They are proud to stand up like this. So what is the effect of this? What these children do in offering themselves up? The parents of the other children, Muslims, they say, how? How can that be? I know this little boy. I know this sweet girl. She's just a friend of mine, my boy, or my girl. So they don't accept it anymore. That's the power that is in offering yourselves up. And the Persian believers are perfect in this. You know, Abdul Baha gives this beautiful example what to offer yourselves up, what it is, sacrifice. I guess you know this. He says, think of a caterpillar, sitting on a twig and munching away whatever leaves there are, being happy. Not very beautiful, because a caterpillar is perhaps not the most beautiful. But then comes the time in the life of this caterpillar that suddenly it stops eating, which was the purpose of its life. And Abdul Baha says it climbs up the twig or bush to the top, and there it sits, and then it starts developing a cocoon around it, and then happens what Paula says, is the sacrifice. Because in it develops a totally different being. A caterpillar becomes a butterfly. The butterfly doesn't need to eat much. A little nectar is fine. It doesn't live very long, but its beauty, that's sacrifice, Abdul Baha says. And in this way, I think the most perfect example give us the Persian believers that are so steadfast, now for more than 160 years. But Abdul Baha says there is another way. And this is the way we prefer in what he would have said in the West. That is all of us here, more or less, perhaps prefer. It is not so easy. If I would think I would now have to give my life, yes, of course, I could, because I'm an old man. But if they did it, at earlier, look, when I go to the youth today, should I tell them you have to give up your life? No, that's not nice. With such an idea. No, it is not, friends. So they are in front, so they should learn another way of offering ourselves up. It is, Abdul Baha says, if you think of iron, the metal, iron, when you find it in the ground, it is cold, it is solid, it is black. But what you do then with this cold, solid, black metal, you take it and you throw it into a furnace, into an oven, very hot. Then what does this thing do? becomes, Abdu'l-Baha says, whilst it was solid, it becomes fluid. While it was black, it becomes red. Where it was cold, it becomes glowing, warm, heat. He says, these are characteristics of heaven. Redness, I don't know, but he says so. Glowing, oh yes. Look at some Baha'is when they have spoken to someone else about the Baha'i faith, and they find a reaction. They are glowing, they are radiant, they are happy. Yeah? This, yes. And fluid, of course, we are adaptable. All in the faith of Baha'u'llah is growing, developing, open. Yeah? So also with us. So iron changes its qualities. It doesn't become something totally new, but it changes its qualities. That, Abdu'l-Baha says, is for us. Shoghi Effendi has explained that the believer in the East, as he says, that is, for example, in Iran, is asked to offer up her or his life in the split of a second. Just throw it away. Yeah? But he said, no, not with the Westerners. They cannot be asked that. They will be asked another thing, which is equal to martyrdom. It means to be 24 hours a day a conscious Baha'i. Conscious Baha'i. Now, be cautious when you go out, what you say, how you act, what you do outside of in society. Conscious Baha'i. Are we always, friends, always absolutely trustworthy, honest, Baha'i as it is demanded? If I think that in April I have to write my tax declaration, am I then really a truthful Baha'i? Or perhaps I find a way a little bit too safe. Yeah? So it is not negative what I mean, but to be a conscious Baha'i 24 hours, Shoghi Effendi says, is like martyrdom in the East, in a split of a second. Because it is all the time, even in our sleep. Yeah? So this is equal in this offering ourselves up, but it means sacrifice. In a sense, the life of a Baha'i is to be sacrificed, because it means to change. Remember what the Universal House of Justice kept telling us in all its messages after especially the year 2000. What did the Universal House say, 2000? They said, we have achieved one great goal. I come to it in the third part of my morning sessions. It says, the structure of the administrative system of the Baha'i faith stands in the gaze of the world, in the wholeness of its essential form. What does this mean? It means that we have achieved something. We have built a structure that the world around us, not too far away, we come perhaps to that in the fourth part, when we talk about politics, but that this system is ready in the eyes of the world. It's a system. Yeah? But then the Universal House of Justice says, now the task for us is to fill this system with the Spirit. Because there comes the time, a time where we Baha'is are assured by Baha'u'llah that there will be, in a gradual development of peace, there will come a form where the politicians say we are at the end of our wits. There is no way to achieve peace but with a system that functions. So they will come to New Zealand. They will come to Hamilton. But they will also come to Hamilton in, let's say, Canada. And there they see, here in Hamilton, it works a system. These people are just the same as there. So what they do is, as we are explained by Abdul Baha, they will accept our order, our structure, the system. But of course they are not Baha'i. They are politicians. They have different interests. And Abdul Baha says, yes, it is, of course, if you have a system, something that is a structure which you can use in building, as we wish, building the new civilization. If you have this structure, it's great, but it's a structure. Abdul Baha says it is like a body that is perfect, but without the Spirit, it will fall apart. So who is the Spirit? It is you. It is you who have the knowledge of how to build the house. That's the point. And how do you build the house? Again, Abdul Baha gave the answer when he was, for example, in Chicago. What did he say? If you wish to build a house, you have first, he says, you have to have the ground. Again, we stand on the shoulders of those before us. The ground. We build our new house, which is the old house in a sense. We build it on the ground of earlier religions. Then Abdul Baha says, you have to have a design. I told you the design. It's not many dwellings in one house, an apartment house. No, it is one room which you have to fill. So, ground and design we have. Then Abdul Baha says, of course, we need to have the means and or funds for it. Means in the faith means our writings. We have the guidance how to do it, how to build the house. This is why we are here, knowledge. We apply it. And funds, yes, Paula says, even his cause needs funds, material means, certainly. We are going to have one presentation, therefore, during this summer school on Hukukullah. Because without material means, this faith cannot grow. Don't think that we are like St. Paul, who says everything material is from the devil. No. We enjoy life. We even use the means, but we use them in the way how Baha'u'llah has told us. That nothing comes in between us and our Creator. In this way, we know how to carry forward our ever-advancing civilization. But it is built on material means. So Abdul Baha says, the ground, the design, the means, the funds, and then, of course, it says it needs to actually build it. That's what we do. We apply the new building. In building the new civilization, we apply it in our life. We apply it in our spreading, promoting the teachings. We apply it through our institutions in training the souls of man. Yeah? So this is, in a sense, why... what is it? No, I still have time. Why I had thought it might be good to go back to this quotation. Yeah? It was, out of the mass of humankind, God has chosen the friends and favored them with his guidance and boundless grace. His purpose is this, that we, each one of us, should, with all our hearts, strive to offer ourselves up. This is living the life of a Baha'i. No one says, friends, that it is easy to be a Baha'i. No? Not at all. When Abdul Baha was in the States, he left, he was on the Celtic. Is it Celtic, the boat? Cedric he came, Celtic he left. The boat, he was standing inside and addressing the friends who wanted to wave goodbye to him. And he was talking to them. And he didn't say really goodbye, but what he said was very interesting. He said, because of me, you will have to suffer. Isn't that strange? Abdul Baha, was kindness in person. And these are his parting words. Because of me, he says, you will have to suffer. But, he says, I'll always be with you. That's the point. Huh? And it is not easy to become a Baha'i. When Abdul Baha was in Stuttgart, in this case, but also in other places, he very clearly said, it is easy to become a Baha'i, but it is most difficult to stay, because the tests are rigorous and never-ending. That's the Baha'i life. Now, you judge how easy it was for you to become a Baha'i. Perhaps it was not so easy, and you struggled perhaps for a long time. Shoki Effendi says, some of the best Baha'is struggled for a long time. Shoki Effendi was for the safe way, what he called fireside, perhaps 10 years, he says, it takes. So it is quite a struggle to become a Baha'i. Others, perhaps it was different. If you are like me, you have parents, thanks God, who educated you. So it was not such a struggle. But it is not so difficult, perhaps, as Abdul Baha says, to become a Baha'i. But it's most difficult to stay a Baha'i. Why? Because you are tested, you are challenged, you are asked to learn something here. Not only stay, beautiful weather today. Great. But remember, it will rain. So you enjoy, but at the same time, in the morning, you sit in here. It's both. So it means that nothing comes easy in the faith. Nothing. Because if it came easy, we would not appreciate it. We need a challenge. We need to change. Universal House of Justice very clearly says every Baha'i needs to be an agent of change. We need to welcome change, to transform mankind. By the way, it is interesting to see how the Universal House of Justice uses the words. They say, we change the world, but we transform the spirits. Think about it. I just mentioned it, so you have some homework to do. Yeah? What is the difference between change and transforming? Yeah? What does it mean? Think of a caterpillar in life. So it is this that we have to have challenges, tests, Abdul Baha calls it. And these tests, he says, are rigorous. That is, they are not easy. And you yourself know that our life is not easy. Yeah? But the funny thing is, not funny, but he didn't call it funny, but Abdul Baha said, once you accept a test, you realize it's something, it's not, you cannot avoid it. Yeah? Once it is the case, then Abdul Baha says it is no more a test. It loses its character as a test. So try it out. Try it out in your life. I'm sure some of you have a test now. Others will have soon a test. Because they are never ending. Yeah? So try it out. To accept it. And think, okay, with the help of Paula, with the help of a prayer, with the help of other believers, whatever, with the help of our institutions, I'll make it. And then the test becomes suddenly something that makes you stronger. Because the purpose is to become stronger. Yeah? So this is, and remember one thing, Paula very clearly says, no soul is burdened beyond its capacity. No one of us. But the tests are there that we feel them. It must be a challenge. Otherwise, what is a test? Yeah? So this is what we should also accept in our life. That we need to be tested. And certainly as a Baha'i, we need even to be rigorously tested. It has to be. So let us accept the test and try to think what's the meaning behind it. Where should I become stronger? Because obviously, as I mentioned, you remember, some time ago, I said we are gifted. We have certain potential, a certain capacity and ability which God wishes to use. You only find it out through a challenge. Because if you think I'm good in this, maybe you are not. Because you feel superior or whatnot. Yeah? Look, such a problem it is for especially, I guess, if you are someone like me, I like to think. Yeah? Intellect. What does Paula says? Intellect breeds pride. How easily we find, even in Baha'is pride, how bad it is. It's a disappointment. They should be strong, but not in feeling superior, telling us what to do. They should be the lowest. My father was a good man. Therefore, I guess he was ahead of the course. But whenever he had a chance, he told me, look, the higher you get up in the faith, the deeper you can fall. Remember that. It is true. We are challenged against these feelings. What did the Universal House of Justice say in, for example, 2009, Grossmann message, again to the youth? Now, they said, yes, we spread the faith, we promote the Baha'i faith, we try to help the junior youth, all this. but never with a feeling of superiority. Yeah? This is the same. We have to be submissive, to accept, to try, to strive, and realize that it is for God to judge how good we are. So this, again, is what makes our life. That is to face these tests and overcome them. They will never stop. This is true. But the Baha'i has constantly to become stronger. If you think, friends, what's ahead of us, I'll try to do this in the last session more in detail, but if you think that we really have to change this world, to change this world that is so fed up with religion. It was in January 11, 2011, suddenly all over Europe, also in the States, I think even Canada, suddenly in the buses, everywhere in other places, there were big posters. God is dead. Big campaign from, I can't remember, it was the Committee for Atheism or whatever. Anyway, God is dead. And then it said, why can God allow such things that children suffer and whatnot? Certainly it is sad. But who makes them suffer? Not God. Us. I don't mean you, but man. It's not their fault, not God's fault. God leaves it to us. We have a choice. But the sad thing is, because it was in Europe especially, people don't think religion is anything worth. So we in Europe are not so fortunate as you are in this, that we, I mentioned to my wife, Finland has about the same, a little more than you in population. But we have only 900 Baha'is. And a good number of our Baha'is is not even Finnish. It is from Norway and Sweden. We have taken from them because this is a council that has in the north, beyond the Arctic Circle, and Chogi Fendi has said this should be under one national assembly. So they chose Finland. So we have a lot of Norwegians and Swedes in Finland as Baha'is who are not Finns, and yet we are 900. And you are so at least double. So think of it, friends, how lucky you are. But in Europe, we struggle with such things. And Chogi Fendi has very clearly said, religion will be utterly despised. You feel this in Europe. So you are lucky. Think of it. But it's a challenge for you, it's a challenge for us. For us to accept it, to find ways to remove, as Abdu'l-Baha says, in teaching the estrangement tomorrow, and the other for you to seize the chance. It will come no more, as it is said. So we have all our challenges, whether we are here or there. But we have to have these tests to make us stronger, also in our daily life. One thing I would like further to mention. In our life, it is very important that we as Baha'is learn obedience. This comes up on the third morning, our relationship with our institutions, but obedience is essential for being a Baha'i. Yeah? Now, I'm a German. Yeah? It is said that the Germans have this kind of blind obedience. You know, someone makes like this, we obey. Yeah? What did Shoghi Effendi say? No, he said, the Germans have learned the lesson. They burst their armor, and he said, those around them picked the pieces up. Remember, friends, we learn, we are strong, even as people. If Germany had not been pushed down after the war, and all the machines were gone, to Russia, to England, to France, we wouldn't have had new machines. We wouldn't have had this wonder of what we said in business and economy. Because we had to go from the scratch. That's a test that makes you strong. Yeah? We accept these tests and make the best of it. That's the faith. Now, obedience. Obedience is essential in the faith. Not this blind, but this conscious obedience. Paula says, it is in Cleanings, be anxiously concerned with the needs of the age you live in. And center your deliberations on its exigencies and requirements. That is, to be anxiously concerned, that means consciously look with eagerness at situations around you. That is with a certain way that you know, Paula says this way, or the Universal House of Justice tells us that way, so we do it without asking why. Because we cannot be better in the guidance we have. Remember what I said? God has chosen the friends and favored them with his guidance. So should we ask whether the guidance is good for me? No, we cannot. So we have to obey in this way, but in a conscious way, to submit to something with happiness, or voluntary, or that we realize, yes, that's for the best. Not perhaps for me, but for all. That's more important. So it is this conscious, anxiously be concerned obedience with the needs of the age we live in. This is what the Universal House of Justice keeps telling us in the Rizwan message constantly, especially since 2010. All the messages focus on this one thing, to be open to have a public discourse, to participate in social life, all of this. Again, it is part perhaps of this fourth part when talking about politics. Obedience. Sacrifice, obedience makes our life. Another is that Shoghi Effendi said it this way, that he, in a letter, states that we should feel with people around us. We should understand that people are unhappy. We should realize that for this reason they start to use drugs, they start to drink, they start to do all kinds in their lives to somehow cope with it. So Shoghi Effendi said, yes, we should feel with those around us. But he said, you never You never are allowed to lower your standard and come as low as they are. Never. We feel with them, but we don't lower our standard. Now, Shoghi Effendi was very strict in these things and about lowering our standard. Yeah? When you look at the House of Justice, it is sometimes you get the feeling it's especially a house of mercy because they accept that even we try to make compromises in life. It is not good, but understandable in a large way, but not to lower our standard. This is not good. So we have to have a standard in life. Baha'u'llah says, again in the cleaning, no, it's in Tablets of Baha'u'llah, he says that, unfortunately, the touchstone and standard which we have to have is usually those things that are opposite to our desires. That's the problem. And especially for a non-Baha'i, of course it is difficult. But even for us, this is one of those challenges. But sacrifice, then obedience, the not lowering our standard, to keep what we are, there's no compromise. Because a compromise means, according to Abdul Baha, that we concede to weakness. That we don't progress anymore. And of course the fourth is being an example. Look, friends, we cannot even stand still. If you want to rest, then you better leave the faith. Look at us. You know, I like this example, which you may know from the writings of Shoghi Effendi. You know, he says we are against the stream. The current is going down. We have to go up. Now, he says, sit in the rowing boat. The moment you rest on your oars, you are taken down. You cannot. We have to row as hard as it is, but constantly. In our standard, in our example, in the way we live our daily life, east or west, in everything we have to do it. In our obedience, we cannot say, oh, today I'm obedient, tomorrow perhaps I make a compromise. No, it is not possible. It's not easy to be a Baha'i. Certainly, this is what Abdul Baha meant. But you have the assurance, you have the promise, so you have faith. That is what Abdul Baha promised when he left on the boat. Did I have one thing? Wait, I don't want to leave something out. Yeah, we are often said we are too idealistic. This, what we say, is not possible. Okay, it sounds very, very idealistic, but friends, we are building the new civilization. Of course we cannot have it yet. It's impossible. But in a nucleus, in a little way, we can achieve it amongst ourselves. Yeah? Look at us here at this summer school during these days. Of course, it's beautiful how I think there is no disharmony. And it will not be, because why should we? We don't need even to act on what we learn here. So it is so good just to learn and relax. Yeah? So no disharmony. But this, already in this summer school, where we are some hundred, to be so united is like a little demonstration of how it will be one day. One day. Yeah? And people around, we are very much amongst ourselves, but we can go from here and say, oh, we were so united, so happy together, that others will say, why? What did you do? Sitting in the sun, eating well, taking care of everything. Yes, that's part, but we learned also something. And in learning we go forward. The Universal House of Justice says what we do in these times is to have a culture of learning. So the summer schools are the ideal way of learning, to develop this culture of which the House of Justice speaks. There is one message, for example, 10, the message to the Baha'i world based on the consultations with the counselors of the same year. All this speaks of learning. A constant process of learning. So our life is also this learning, being open. You know why Abdu'l Baha says it is very interesting to take Christianity as a religion. He says there was no structure in religion, in the Christian religion. So they did the Christian religion. Jesus said, you are Peter the rock, on you I shall build my community. But, this was a saying, no one kept it, especially not St. Paul. So it went different ways. Christianity became weak. 160 to 300 years after, it was necessary that 600 years earlier, all in all, after Jesus, already Muhammad had to come. Christianity was weak because of the lack of a structure. But, Abdu'l Baha says, Christians have one great virtue. They can learn. What do we celebrate, or did we celebrate 2 days ago? We celebrate Christmas. When was Christ really born? Forget it. He was already a strong baby at that time, which we celebrate. Born much earlier. But when the Christians came or the missionaries came, they said, oh, it's a good way when, like in Europe, the days now become longer, warmer, lighter. Oh, that's good. That we celebrate. And we connect it with Jesus. This way, Abdu'l Baha says, they spread all over the world. It's the most widely spread religion. Because they are adaptable. They can learn. Now, this is why he said the Baha'is have to learn. Why we have to do the same. What's the time? I don't want to stress you, because otherwise you have no appetite. But it is, friends, that we realize we have to learn, to be open. That we are, that you see. Christianity is today the most widely spread religion. You know who is this? Not in number, but which religion is the second most spread all over the world? The Baha'i faith. Why? because the Baha'is have obedience, did what Shoghi Effendi said. Baha'is can learn, they keep a standard. All this makes them the builders of the new civilization. Thank you, friends, for your patience.